高端访谈专访诺贝尔经济学奖获得者萨金特，他持续访华，探寻中国快速发展的奥秘。
What made this happen is the political leaders in China. They made decisions that unleashed the energy and the creativity and entrepreneurship and the scientific abilities.
他称赞中国接续制定5年规划，环环相扣。
They're clearly written by some very smart and thoughtful people.
他说，中国重视教育，重视推进科学发展。
China's a leader in all sorts of scientific things.
高端访谈，敬请收看。
关注国际焦点，洞察世界风云。大家好，欢迎收看本期高端访谈，我是王冠。我们今天的对话嘉宾是诺贝尔经济学奖获得者、美国经济学家托马斯·萨金特。他多年来连续访华，认为中国的发展堪称奇迹。他认为这个奇迹的背后有着怎样的制度逻辑与文化基因？他的理性预期理论又与中国的5年规划有着怎样的共鸣？让我们一起在对话中寻找答案。Professor Sargent, it's our honor to have you with us on Leaders Talk on China Media Group. You've been coming to China for conferences and exchanges for years on end. What insights, trends have you observed this year by talking and by attending all these forums?
Look, I'm 82. When I was 40, China was a very poor country. And now, when we're sitting in the places I visit now, are the most advanced in the world. And that's happened in the shortest time in history at a country of this size. So it's generally a miracle for an economist to see.
To what do you attribute this miracle? So to what do you attribute this, in your own words, the fastest rise in welfare and GDP in the human history? What has China got right to where it is?
If you're kind of an American, it's kind of a personal question, because for the last 35 or 40 years, China's systematically stood for opening up and trade in goods, services. So free trade, interactions across borders, free borders, ports, that's what it got right. And so you can see why I take it personally, because my country started a trade war. That's not good for my country, okay? So we're not doing some of the things that China got right. So it was like opening up markets, promoting science, promoting learning, celebrating our universities. Professors, students are celebrating science. Those were all ingredients. What made this happen is the political leaders in China. They made decisions that unleashed the energy and the creativity and entrepreneurship and the scientific abilities. China's a leader in all sorts of scientific things now. They unleashed that, and somehow it's what made this place, what made these great Chinese scientists and engineers is themselves, the energy and the characteristics of the people. And those are things my country has things to learn from what you guys did right. It's happened over and over again. Countries that have opened up, unleashed entrepreneurs have done well. With an order, with a stable, with a stable order and rules, and for doing commerce.
Do you think China did it right when they placed very, very aggressive and heavy emphasis on STEM education?
Yes. The thing that impresses me most is the quality of the students. I actually see them when they've graduated from college or high school. So I see that they're very talented and educated. So there's a student I just have been interacting with. He came to my office. He's trained entirely here. He's getting his PhD at Shenzhen. He's world class. He's totally trained in China. He's really good at math. But it's like, when I say good at math, it's not a mathematician. It's his language. He can speak math better than, I can speak English. He just second nature, which means it gives him a power. Like, it took a lot of talent, but it wasn't just talent. It was a system that
托马斯·萨金特，全球宏观经济研究的杰出学者之一。2011年，他与克里斯托弗·西姆斯因对宏观经济中因果关系的实证研究，共同摘得诺贝尔经济学奖。他的理性预期理论为现代宏观经济学和计量经济学的发展奠定坚实基础，对政策制定和经济分析产生深远影响。萨金特不仅在学术界享有盛誉，还与中方合作培养经济学人才。2024年，萨金特荣获中国政府友谊奖。
Let's talk about your field, Professor. You're famous for your rational expectations revolution work. And you came up with the theory that, look, you have aggressive fiscal policy and loose monetary policy, and you create something that you do not necessarily want, that is stagflation. And you said policy credibility is important, long-term is important, and people's expectations cannot just be, based on short-term manipulation. Talk to us about that, please.
Oh, you got it correctly. That's something that I wish the people in my government would read and remember. Expectations is about how should you forecast the future. Well, the mathematical theory of forecasting was invented during World War II by Wiener and by some people that we studied. So one thing that we learned in these tools is okay, if you're trying to do monetary and fiscal policy, government policy, tax policies, how should you do that? And then the notion of commitment and stable rules, certain rules, those are messages that just popped out of the math, okay? I had a businessman tell me in the United States, he's very upset about the uncertainty that trumps policies. He said, look, you tell me the rules. I can adapt to the rules, but if you change them, if you don't tell me, you change them every day. I just don't know it. So we have a fiscal situation in the United States. We have a social safety net. We have a public medical system. They're very expensive. If you look at all the plans and the numbers that are in the books, they do not fit together. They violate arithmetic. For example, the Social Security system is going to go bankrupt in 8 years. Okay, so that's the situation. Now, you could mathematically say what's going to happen. The United States is either going to have to default on some of its debts, we're going to have to increase some taxes, default on some promises to recipients. The politicians can pretend that they're not going to fix it when they're in office, but it's going to be fixed. I think, does the man in the street know that? Well, not in my country. In my country, STEM knowledge is not all that widespread. There was a poll. They asked, what is 1/2 divided by 1/4? And the most popular answer was, it's a trick question. You can't divide a fraction by a fraction. Well, of course you can, but that's just, the whole thing was that the median thing was Americans don't know math.
Now, based on your rational expectations revolution theory, what would be a most practical or a set of practical advice that you can give to current central bank governors and fiscal chiefs?
Look, if you look at the Central Bank of China, and they're going to say my advice better than I can say it. They're going to want basically stable rules that people can understand. They're going to want basically have policies where the government's collecting enough taxes to pay for its expenditures. They're going to have, that it wants financial regulation. It's going to have, all the things that they've announced are basically within the framework that we like. And they want consistent rules over time.
Talking about consistent rules over time, the Chinese economic model is modeled after 5-year plans. We've just been through the past 5-year plan cycle, the 14th, and we're now making the 15th 5-year plan.
Yeah.
That would be the organizing principle guiding China's socioeconomic development. What do you think of this model?
If you actually look at the Chinese 5-year plans, they're connected. 5 years is kind of a long time. Why 5 and not 10? Well, because you don't know what's going to happen that far out, realistically, so you want to adapt. But if you look at the plans, they fit together. kind of interesting to read. So it's
strategies.
It's kind of a broad strategy, but what I'm thinking is kind of like we're going to create incentives so we kind of push things in this direction. So it's kind of interesting if you ask us, if you read them, they're clearly written by some very smart and thoughtful people. How much detail would you want to give? So detail versus kind of general direction, they strike a balance. That's what strikes me.
Talking about consistency and predictability, the government mapped out a plan to have this grain campaign, revolutionizing China's development model towards sustainability. And then you see this record number of EVs rolling out of assembly lines now running on the street of the world. A lithium battery, China is the largest producer of the world by far. Wherever you go, you've been to quite a number of Chinese cities, it's quiet because they're running the streets.
Yeah, I've seen it happen. I went to Beijing 12 years ago, and the quality of the air and the cars. And I saw, and it's a miracle. It's kind of a shame because my country, China makes solar panels and it makes electric vehicles, which could really help the green problem in the United States. But we put tariffs on those things. It just exposes hypocrisy. Those are things we should be importing.
Because you don't see Chinese EVs on the street of Washington, for example. Nothing whatsoever.
My friend's car, I would love to have my friend's Huawei car. I can't buy one. Biden put a 100% tariff on those things. So it's not just the Republicans. It's more disturbing than that.
美国新一届政府执政以来，贸易保护主义倾向日益严重。美国对所有国家加征关税，供应链遭遇人为割裂，全球贸易环境发生剧烈变化。
As an economist, how do you feel when you see politics and geopolitics get in the way of sound economic science, and when politicians basically swindle ideas, unproven, unsubstantiated, and untested to their constituents, to voters?
Most respectable economists they like free trade, they like open borders, they like trade in ideas. Politicians or statespeople, like in my country, people who say, we're going to impose tariffs, we're going to bring back manufacturing in the United States, and we're going to raise lots of revenues from tariffs. They don't fit together.
Will manufacturing go back to the United States? Have they come back to the United States?
No.
The way they did?
No, so that's misleading. First, what politicians say was going to bring back good manufacturing jobs in the United States, like we had 40 years ago. Well, if you went to a plant in the United States 40 years ago, or a plant in China 40 years, it didn't look like a plant now. If you go to a plant now, I've been to a plant in China. Okay, it was amazing. Okay, there were very few people there. There were robots. Yeah. So China's a leader in that. If you brought manufacturing back to the United States, you would bring back a lot of jobs. That's misleading, but there's no evidence that manufacturing is coming back to the United States so far. You could bring some back by putting tariffs so high that you'd close us off if we wanted to, but that's not going to happen. It's not free market economics. So one thing that China did, you asked me what it did right, it gradually set in place it tried to set up a set of rules, and it's what a lot of countries try to do. They tried to set up a framework where the governments would set up the rules, and then maybe general directions, and then let people do the best they could. A lot of competition, with those rules, of kind of a level playing field. That's what economists like. I think that's what most people like. Like if you're in a family and you say, the father comes in and says, it's all depends on how I feel. You're going to get an allowance, or you're going to, So it's just people like order.
So what are we heading into?
I don't know, but so I'll tell you one thing: there's lots of trade that is free on some of the most important things. So I do lots of free trade, and I'm a producer. I do open source computing. So what I do is with a friend, we have this thing that we set up, and we're not alone. We produce computer code, and we give it away worldwide. You put a tariff on it, it's zero. We give it away. And it's called, it goes on all over the world. There's people in China who are leaders in artificial intelligence. So, you know, there's a so-called race for artificial intelligence and who's gonna win that. And some of the justification for American restrictions on Chinese chips are we don't want another country to do artificial intelligence. Well, guess what? Artificial intelligence is using some mathematics that people are giving away. Okay, there's papers. So I use Chinese artificial intelligence, DeepSeek. It's very good. They're giving me ideas. I give them ideas. Go back and forth. It's free trade. And scientists, mathematicians, engineers, they like that. And it's not trade secrets. It's like how to use algebra and geometry better. And you cannot stop that. There's scientific ideas that it's actually a wonderful thing. It's a force for cooperation. And that's going to go on. An example would be 5 years ago, making cars that could automatically drive. That's a very hard engineering and computer problem. Look, my friends have a Huawei car that drives. You should be the automatic driving. That's solving a really complicated problem with the sensors. Just what's been done in the last 5 or 10 years, that. Just think what's going to be happening next. And that doesn't matter whether China has the fastest chips, because China's going to be making some fast enough chips. That's my view. So do I think it's going to be completely decoupled? No, because lots of the ideas about engineering and chemistry, physics. China's a leader in some kinds of physics. Pure science. Near Guangzhou, China is building an incredible facility. The Chinese government, I guess, building it. It's the leading one in the world. The fact that China's doing that means to me to think, well, engineers and scientists in other countries are going to want to learn about that. That's a force for not decoupling. That's the way I see it.
You see this natural element that the law of science, of of economics, the fundamentals of it will naturally bring elements together, talents, goods, and ideas.
It's a force. It's a
that cannot be broken.
Yeah. And what's also true is there's lessons. History teaches a lot of lessons about good things and bad things that happen in history and things you got to remember. So one lesson my country should learn is, if you ask why American science in the last 70 or 80 years has been leading in the world, it's because we imported scientists from Europe during World War II, when the Europeans, the Nazis they drove them out. And if you look in one field after another, including economics, it came from Austria, Germany. They were driven out. And the United States, it happened in physics, chemistry. The United States has jumped up. We built up universities. Right now, the United States is not, because of what's happened in the last year in terms of universities. You see all sorts of scientists who maybe weren't born in the United States want to leave the United States. That's just ignoring a huge lesson in history.
Professor Sargent, China's research and development spending reached 2.8% of the GDP in 2025. According to World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, Global Innovation Index in 2025, China ranked 10th among all the 139 economies surveyed, high-end manufacturing, so on and so forth. So do you see China becoming an innovation powerhouse?
It already is. I've seen it, yes. Yes, I do. And part of the innovation is how creative. It's not just the chips. It's not chips. It's the cleverness of the algorithms and the use of mathematics and the use of engineering and the use of, it's human intelligence that's making these things. And you look at the numbers. An example would be, I'm writing a paper. I've been writing a paper with two guys who happen to be Chinese. They're so smart, they run circles around me, technically. You know, one's half my age and another's a third my age. And their energy and intelligence, and I see how far ahead they are from where I was at their age, or am now. It's just amazing. Maybe it's a coincidence they happen to be Chinese, but I just see lots of resources here.
The Global Development Report 2025 finds that in 2024, the Global South, the developing countries, grew at a phenomenal rate, 4.28%, far outpacing the 1.8% of advanced economies. And now developing countries, the Global South, account for over 60% of world trade growth. What does Global South represent to you, and what kind of a force do you see that becoming in the economic sphere, at least, in this world?
It's a great question. So the way I think is, when economic development happens, there's the way I translate those numbers into the way I think about lives of people and their daily lives and the things they have access to. People are being lifted out of poverty. So if you think about what happened just in my lifetime in China, people who, and you can see it, like people who, when lifting out of poverty is like the opportunities that you have that you just never had, to use your mind. It's just a miracle. So those numbers are concealing that there's, I guess there's little countries that are kind of trying to copy China and lift themselves up. But if you translate it, the numbers are, those numbers are telling you, like, individual families, kids are having opportunities they didn't have before. And the things that have moved me a lot about coming to China, I met a student, I talked to him, he's a student of one of my friends. He was getting a PhD in economics, and he got it, and he has a job now. His mother can't read. His mother can't understand, I mean, I'm sure she's proud of him. And he comes from a family where they didn't read. His sister knew how to read. He comes from a little village. Think of how his life, I mean, just what's happened. I'm translating your numbers into what I see. Maybe that's going on in Thailand or something like that. It's just opportunities that are being created.
It's a beautiful perspective, the human perspective. You've been traveling across China, even opening a branch of a university, partnering with Chinese institutions in Shenzhen, Guangdong province. I mean, what aspects of the Chinese modernization impressed you?
I've been in various cities, like Shenzhen, Beijing. I've been in a whole bunch of cities. Hangzhou. I've been in the airports. I was in one of the airports this morning. I was telling the friend who showed me, I said, this is a remarkably beautiful airport. He said, this is the old airport. The physical structure, the beauty of the buildings impresses me a lot, but the people impress me more.
In what ways?
Well, first they made the buildings, so what they created. Walk down the street, people are nice to me. Like I'm by myself in the Shenzhen airport, and I'm walking through there. This old man's walking through there, and there's 7 or 8 people on the way between who ask me if they can help me, and they're kind.
Not knowing who you are, not knowing you're a Nobel laureate.
No, they're just see this old guy.
Great. Professor Sargent, what would be your advice to those aspiring young economists and scientists and mathematicians? What would be your advice?
I wouldn't want. My wife would say, nobody wants to be another Tom. No. Nobody say. So I would say, be yourself. Do what you enjoy. You have fun with what you're doing. Make sure it's something good for you and your family and your society, but really enjoy it. So find out what you're good at and what you like. Pretty simple. Do that. Not what somebody else tells you. You got to figure out what you want to do. You find something you kind of like and you're kind of good at, the combination. And then that makes it fun. That's what I think.
It's a beautiful piece of advice. I'm the first one to take it, and I feel lucky and fortunate. Professor Sargent, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for your patience.
在专访中，萨金特教授称赞中国坚持对外开放、制定稳定政策、专注教育、推动科技创新等做法。他还表示，在充满不确定性的时代，稳定的规则、可信的承诺和开放的合作，正是降低风险、增强信心的基础。好，感谢您收看本期高端访谈，我是王冠，我们下期再会。